tails, one head, yang yang. Three tails, old yin. Three heads, old yang. Three heads, old yang. Three tails, old yin. Two tails, one head, yang yang. I'll start by reading a passage from Immortal Sisters. Secrets of Taoist Women. The writings and poems of 6 distinguished Taoist women adepts, writing between the 4th and 12th centuries, including the legendary Sun Bu'er. These translations shed light on the spiritual methods used by these women and illustrate the prominence of the feminine in Taoism. Poems by Xiao Shaozhen. The first crescent of the moon shows its form like a beauty's brow. Paired with the light of the sun, its clear purity abounds. If you want to gain productive energy and congeal the jade broth, first seek the wax and wane. Grab the golden wave. Notes. The first crescent of the moon represents the initial emergence of enlightened awareness from the shadow of mundane conditioning. When the moon is paired with the light of the sun, that means it is full, signifying the complete revelation of awakened consciousness. The jade broth is the result of refinement of essence, which means purification of the self and removal of egotistical desires. The wax and wane means the waxing of positive qualities and the waning of negative qualities. The golden wave is the purified creative energy of life itself. Where the source of essence is clear, the foundation of life is firm. Turn the water wheel 9 times, and the 9 cauldrons complete. The gold tiger and jade dragon meet together and join. The 3 flowers offer forth a little spirit immortal. Notes. The water wheel is the process of energy circulation, a common Taoist exercise whereby psychic heat is generated in the body and guided by the attention through psychic channels visualized traveling up the spine and down the front of the torso. 9 is the number associated with the full development of the positive principle. The 9 cauldrons stands for the firm positive energy symbolized by the creative sign of the I Ching. The gold tiger stands for life or energy. The jade dragon stands for essence or spirit. The 3 flowers represent the 3 jewels of Taoist practice: vitality, energy, and spirit, which are combined to produce the complete human. Mind like still water, I'm naturally at peace. Always calm yet ever alert, I make good progress. Having nurtured the raven to plumpness, I feed the rabbit so thin. Spiritual mushrooms pop up on the blue-green peak. Notes. The raven represents the sun, life, energy, real knowledge, the mind of the Tao. The rabbit represents the moon, essence, spirit, conscious knowledge, the human mind. Certain mushrooms are traditionally eaten to foster health and prolong life. Spiritual mushrooms stand for spiritual immortality. You should know there is also a heaven in the earth. To seek it single-mindedly is to seek immortality. One day, when you thoroughly understand the meaning of yin and yang, you find it is only before the energy of generation. Notes. Heaven in the earth stands for enlightenment while in the midst of the world. Real knowledge within conscious knowledge. The mind of the Tao within the human mind. Before the energy of generation alludes to an esoteric exercise similar to the Chan practice of turning around the light and looking inward to see your original face before you were born. Dark hair and ruddy face, how long do they last? In a moment, the gray hairs are strewn about like thread. Opening the blinds, I glimpse the bloom of the apricot blossom. Here is the scenery of spring. Don't allow delay. Notes. Some Taoist immortalists sought physical effects, others sought metaphysical effects. Still others sought both. In all cases, their quests were based on a realization of the frailty and impermanence of ordinary existence. The apricot, often mistranslated as plum, blooms in the cold of the early spring of the lunar calendar, and hence is commonly used in Zen Buddhism as well as in Taoism to symbolize awakening to complete consciousness after the death, represented by winter, of limiting mental habits. I don't seek supporters and do not study Chan. The world's changes in my eyes I let go on as they may. The alchemical path, you should know, goes directly upward. The mystic jewel is only in our hearts. Notes. This verse echoes a theme commonly found in Chan Buddhism works, that enlightenment is found within oneself and cannot be obtained by external seeking. In our primary hexagram, our first or bottom trigram will be read as solid, broken, solid, which is Li, fire and light. Li is fire and light, both inner and outer. As an inner light, she is consciousness at its most lucid and unclouded, holding things together in the mind, perceiving their differences and connections, and discerning the underlying patterns of relationship. And as well as vision, Li is the light that makes things visible, the power to cast light on things, spreading clarity and the awareness of order. Li is the middle daughter, living in the south, the region of midsummer and the burning sun. Our top or outer trigram will also be read as solid, broken, solid. So we'll have as our primary hexagram Li, fire and light, above Li, fire and light. giving us a hexagram of 30. As our primary hexagram. Once our changing lines change, that being the 2nd through the 5th, our primary hexagram with old yin changing to young yang and old yang changing to young yin, we'll have solid, solid, broken as our bottom trigram of our secondary or supporting hexagram, which will give us dewy, lake, or marsh. Dewy is lake and marsh, abundant energy that teems with life. She is the impulse to communicate, share, and exchange, and delights in both inner and outer conversation. She brings things into circulation and gives them voice. This is the sheer enjoyment of participating in life to the full, expressing ourselves and hearing others and satisfying our desires. Lake is the youngest daughter, spirit of the fertile west and of autumn. In our top or outer trigram of our secondary or supporting hexagram will be read as broken, solid, solid. This is Xun, wind or wood. Xun is both wind and living plants. Whatever penetrates, spreads, and grows, shaping itself to the space available, or shaping that space to its own nature. She is responsive flexibility, sensitively improvising and adapting. Like the wind, she can always find a way through because she never creates any resistance, and so her influence is subtle and gradual, but far-reaching. In the family of trigrams, Xun is the eldest daughter, gentle and submissive. She belongs to the southeast and to late spring and early summer. So we will have Xun, wind or wood above dewy, lake or marsh as our secondary hexagram. Which will give us hexagram 61 as our supporting hexagram. When we have changing lines in a reading, we will be able to understand the question we bring to the I Ching when we consult the oracle, that question having the general context of how can I act in creative relation with the spirits or forces shaping this moment of time. We can understand our answer to that once we understand how the parts of our reading work together. The key to understanding a reading is to know your way around its main components, how they fit together, and the different roles they play. If your reading includes changing lines, then you will need to understand primary hexagram, relating hexagram, and changing lines together. The two hexagrams in conversation with one another map out your whole answer. The primary hexagram shows you quite directly what your answer involves. The relating hexagram generally describes what the answer is about for you. It sets the primary hexagram in a broader context, an influence, a direction of travel, an underlying issue that has to do with you and your relationship to it all. If the two hexagrams map out a landscape for you, then the changing lines stick a pin in that map to say you are here, or at least here are some places you may find yourself. They are the immediate answer to your question. As the most specific, focused part of a reading, their message always takes precedence over all other elements. For example, the primary hexagram might describe a reassuringly secure situation, but a changing line could warn how insecure your position is within it. We'll start by reading the Taoist I Ching by I-ming, written in 1796 as a Taoist adept. And Thomas Cleary has translated it. Our primary hexagram 30 in the beginning is called fire, one of the 4 timeless hexagrams, illumination with inner openness. And 61, our supporting hexagram, is faithfulness in the center. Avoidance of both obsession and negligence, seeking fulfillment by becoming empty. We'll start out reading the commentary section, which contains our changing lines, and then move on to read the text section, which includes our changing lines, and then move on to the commentary section, which does not. Primary hexagram 30, fire. Fire is beneficial for correctness and development. Raising a cow brings good fortune. Explanation. Fire is clinging, and it is illuminating. In the body of the hexagram, 1 yin is stuck between 2 yangs. This represents illumination with inner openness. As for the qualities of the hexagram, above is fire, luminous, and below is also fire, luminous. By inner illumination reaching outer illumination, by outer illumination perfecting inner illumination, illumining inside and illumining outside, inwardly illumined and outwardly illumined, 1,000 illuminations, myriad illuminations are all 2 illuminations, inward illumination and outward illumination, which in totality are 1 illumination. Therefore it is called fire. This fire embraces the female within it. The hexagram symbolizes the presence of yin within yang, and follows on the preceding hexagram, excess of the great. In excess of the great, there is too much yang strength, exercising creativity at will, misusing its light. Illumination is the energy of open awareness in the palace of fire, the heart. It is the spirit of humans, the master of mind. When the mind is open, it is aware. The original spirit is in charge of affairs, and illumination is managed properly. One can thereby balance yang. When the mind is unruly, it wanders. The discriminatory consciousness handles affairs, and illumination is not properly directed. This is sufficient to damage yang. Therefore, fire is beneficial to correctness and development. However, although fire is beneficial to correctness and development, if you only know how to use illumination and do not know how to nurture illumination, you will not attain development. Using illumination means outer illumination. Nurturing illumination means inner illumination. Outer illumination has to be based on inner illumination. Using illumination requires that one first nurture illumination. Therefore, raising a cow brings good fortune. Raising means nurturing. The cow is a symbol of receptivity. The cow does not use its strength. Its nature is most docile. If people can nurture illumination with flexible receptivity, turning the light of consciousness around to shine inward, shutting out deviation and preserving truthfulness, first illumining inside, then illumining outside, then inside and outside will both be illumined. Open awareness will be clear. Nothing can deceive it. Nothing can influence it. Naturally illumining the qualities of enlightenment and resting in the highest good, what can compare to that fortune? But the path of illumination and production of good fortune has a process, a course of work. If there is the slightest carelessness, illumination will not develop. Therefore, illumination must reach inside and outside, so that both are illumined and both are correct. Only this is the benefit of illumination, the development of illumination, the good fortune of illumination. And our supporting hexagram 61, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, a direction and influence, shows how our primary hexagram relates to us. Faithfulness in the center. Faithfulness in the center is auspicious when it reaches even pigs and fish. It is beneficial to cross great rivers. It is beneficial to be correct. Explanation. Faithfulness is truthfulness. Faithfulness in the center means truthfulness is within. The body of the hexagram has 4 yangs outside and 2 yins inside. Open inside, solid outside. Openness and solidity balance each other. Inside and outside correspond. Also, the qualities of the hexagram are inner joy and outer accord. Traversing the path with joyful accord, not obsessed and not astray, it is therefore called faithfulness in the center. This hexagram represents seeking fulfillment by being empty. It follows on the previous hexagram, dispersal. In dispersal, yang is trapped by yin. Yin sneaks in and yang gradually dissolves. If you want yin not to trap yang, but to accord with yang, so that yin and yang conjoin, this is impossible unless you are seriously faithful to the Tao. Without faithfulness to the Tao, practice is insubstantial and lacks power, inevitably leading to failure to complete what has been started. But if the mind is faithful and united, and thought is pure and true, myriad ruminations cease and sincerity within reaches outward, so that one can genuinely carry on true practice, leading from lowliness to exaltation, from shallowness to depth, gradually enabling one to reach the state of profound attainment and self-realization. Spiritual alchemy, the science of the gold elixir, uses the yellow woman as the go-between for yin and yang. The yellow woman is true intent. Faithfulness in the center is truthfulness in the center. Truthfulness is associated with earth, which is called the yellow woman. With the yellow woman in the center, it is possible to harmonize yin and yang, to communicate with self and others, to respond to myriad things. There is nothing that cannot be influenced. Therefore, faithfulness in the center is auspicious when it reaches even pigs and fish. Pigs and fish represent those without knowledge. When truthfulness can influence them, those without knowledge can harmonize themselves. How much the more so those with knowledge? If practitioners of Tao can apply the truthfulness that influences even pigs and fish to cultivation of essence and life, they will not fail to produce good results. However, if faithfulness can be carried out in ease, but not adversity, that faithfulness is not real, and will surely crumble in the end. Even if one is faithful in this way, it does not bode well. There are people who believe in the Tao, and there are those who believe in the Tao and practice it regularly when all is well and comfortable. But there are hardly any who forget themselves for the Tao and do not lose control in situations of great difficulty and stress, when there are great obstacles, when things are topsy-turvy and in shambles, and it is difficult to bear up patiently. If one can remain unmoved and unperturbed in situations that are hard to endure, can go on through and get out, this alone is faithfulness that can move pigs and fish. This is why it is beneficial to cross great rivers, for faithfulness in the center to bode well. Great rivers represent most hazardous places, adverse situations. If one can cross over adverse situations, needless to say, one can cross over favorable situations. When able to pass through both favorable and adverse situations, that faithfulness is beneficial and auspicious wherever it goes. However, the 72 aberrant schools with their 3,600 deviant practices all cling to voidness or stick to forms. These are not studies that can fulfill our nature and lead to the meaning of life. The false distorts the real, the aberrant adulterates the correct. If you have faith without discriminating the false and real, the aberrant and correct, this is incorrect faithfulness, which is not beneficial and does not lead to good results. Therefore, faithfulness is only beneficial if it is correct. Correct faith and correct practice meet with good results, unhindered in adversity or ease, entering from striving into non-striving, thereby perfecting essence in life, completing beginning and end. Of this one can be sure. Back to our primary hexagram 30 to read our changing lines 2 through 5, which have the general context of changing line 2, the heart's perception, the emotional center where you make and feel connections. Changing line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 4, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. These are the most focused part of our reading. Their messages take precedence over all other elements. If they conflict with each other, we'll take that all together and gnaw on it and try and figure out what that means for ourselves. Hexagram 30, fire, changing line 2. Yellow fire is very auspicious. Explanation. When you know you are not illumined and can open your mind and defer to the wise, seeking the illumination of others, this is called yellow fire. Yellow is the color associated with the center. When illumination returns to the center, and you show your own lack and respect what others have, even if you are ignorant, you will gain understanding, and even if you are weak, you will become strong, without losing your basic flexibility and receptivity. What is auspicious and leads to good results is the ability to empty and open the mind. This is being unillumined and seeking the illumination of others. Changing line 3. The afternoon light. Unless you drum on a jug and sing, there will be the lament of old age, which is unfortunate. Explanation. If you are only strong and not flexible, and only know to employ illumination and do not know to nurture illumination, then strong illumination is excessive. This is like the light of the afternoon sun. Having reached the peak of its height, it inevitably goes down. Having reached the peak of illumination, it inevitably grows dark. So if one cannot drum on a jug and sing, there will be the lament of old age. Unbalanced, one will only reap misfortune. This is using illumination and ruining illumination oneself. Changing line 4. The coming forth is abrupt, burning, dying, abandoned. Explanation. If strength is not right, and one is eager to understand outside without being able to understand inside, this is coming forth abruptly. The illumination which comes abruptly seeks in leaps, without due process. It is impulsive and one-sided in action. Its arbitrary doings bring on misfortune, burning, dying, abandoned. Though one wants to seek eternal life this way, instead one will suffer the consequences. This is considering oneself illumined when one is not illumined. Changing line 5. Weeping and lamenting, good fortune. Explanation. Dwelling in outer illumination, those who illumine the external when they should illumine the internal are weak and incapable. It may be that their perception of principle is not true, or that their strength is insufficient. Therefore they weep and lament. And yet, weeping and lamenting, not daring to act arbitrarily, keeping to one's place, is also a way of bringing good fortune. This is clearly knowing one is not illumined. Now to read the commentary section for our primary hexagram 30, fire. Fire above, fire below. Light has dual function. Thus do great people illumine the four quarters with continuing light. Fire refers to the light of the sun. Above and below is fire, associated with the sun. The sun goes in at night and comes out in the daytime. This pattern represents inner illumination and outer illumination, one light having a dual function. This is the image of fire. What great people see in this is that if people are incapable of illumination, the inner, they will be incapable of illumining the outward. First illuminating the inner, then illuminating the outward, as is inner illumination, so also will be outward illumination. Therefore, after they have illumined the inward, they then continue the enlightenment to illumine the four quarters. Light is inner illumination. Continuing light is outward illumination. What does light illumine? It simply illumines the inherent quality of open awareness without obscurity. When one is open and aware, this inner quality or virtue is already illumined, and truthfulness within reaches outside, so that nothing can deceive one, nothing can burden one. One illumines the four quarters and sees everything as clearly as if it were in the palm of one's hand. The yellow sprouts of living potential cover the earth. The golden flowers of spiritual energy bloom throughout the world. Whichever way one turns, everywhere is the Tao. Thoroughly lucid inside and out, that illumination never ceases. Then one has clarified the quality of illumination and rests in the highest good. But continuing the enlightenment to illumine the four quarters cannot be accomplished by idleness and inaction. It involves adjustment through effort. Illumination by enlightenment means perception with clarity. If the enlightenment cannot illumine the four quarters, that light is not great. and cannot be considered continuing light. Once one illumines the inward and also illumines the outward, the light must be like the sun climbing into space, illumining all things such that nothing can block that light. Only then is it true enlightenment. Only then is it continuing light. If there is any shortfall of perceptivity, that means the light is blocked to some extent. When the light can illumine everywhere and nothing can obstruct that perception under any circumstances so that it reaches everywhere without becoming defective anywhere, then the work of clarifying the quality of illumination is completed. It's complete. And our supporting hexagram 61. Truthfulness within. Wind above, lake below. There is wind above a lake, with truthfulness between them. Thus superior people consider judgments and postpone execution. Truthfulness within means there is sincerity in the center. Above is wind, below is lake. There is wind above a lake. The form of a lake is facing upward. The nature of wind is penetrating. Wind blows on the lake receives the wind, as though there is feeling between them. This is the image of truthfulness within. What superior people see in this is that adjudication of criminal cases concerns people's nature and life, and if there is any carelessness, the innocent are harmed. Therefore, after a conviction is established, they do not immediately carry out the sentence. Even if the crime is unpardonable, they still postpone execution and reconsider the case, seeking a way of life in the midst of death. Practitioners of the Tao search out the recondite and find out the hidden, fish out the profound and reach the remote, so as to thoroughly investigate the abstruse and subtle truth. This requires genuine knowledge and clear vision, without the slightest trace of confusion in the mind. In this sense, it is like adjudication of criminal cases. When one understands truth in the mind and puts it into actual practice, the mind dies and the spirit comes to life. Gradually cultivating this without seeking immediate results is like postponing execution. Consideration is whereby life is sought in the midst of death, freeing the innocent and condemning the guilty, enlivening what should be alive and killing what should be dead. If consideration is not thoroughgoing, one has no independent perception and one does not have too much self-confidence. How could it be appropriate to kill rashly? Postponement means reconsideration of whether or not death is appropriate. Inasmuch as the way of life is perforce difficult, the way of death is not easy either. If one does not postpone death, but rather hastens death, hoping for quick accomplishment, one may become a nihilistic quietist. So it is a matter of death after consideration, and then reconsideration at the time of death, whether it is right or wrong, true or false. Only when this is perfectly clear in one's mind will one avoid the mistake of taking the spurious for the genuine. In the image of the hexagram, above is wind, representing gradual advance, while below is lake, representing harmonious and joyful action. Gradualism means one can avoid haste. Harmony means one can be considerate. With consideration and relaxation, truthfulness within being put into practice outwardly, an all-out effort will dissolve away all the pollution of conditioning and expose the primordial original being, so that one will surely reach the realm of eternal life. We will turn to James Dekorne to read some of the synthesis of various commentaries on our lines and our hexagrams. Hexagram 30 he calls clarity. Other titles might be the clinging, the symbol of brightness and of separateness, flaming beauty, radiance, fire, the net, allegiance, the cosmic mean, synergy, sunlight, perception, pertaining to comprehension, the light, consciousness, lucidity, judgment, leg. The free course and success of clarity comes from firm correctness. The nourishment of bovine docility creates good fortune. Blowfold, flaming beauty. Righteous persistence brings reward, success. Rearing cows, good fortune. Cows are gentle creatures which require looking after, hence this sentence means that good fortune can be gained by looking after those in need of help. Ritsama/Karcher, radiance. Harvesting trial, growing, accumulating female cattle, significant. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of expanding light, warmth, and awareness. It emphasizes that joining with the depending on what spreads this light. It emphasizes that joining with and depending on what spreads this light, the action of radiance, is the adequate way to handle it. Cleary 2. Fire is beneficial if correct. Then there is success. In Buddhism, when demons cause disturbance, it is necessary to cleave to true teaching to get rid of aberrations. The image, leg. The image of brightness repeated forms clarity. The great man, in accordance with this, cultivates more and more his brilliant virtue and diffuses its brightness over the four quarters of the land. Blowfold. This hexagram symbolizes fire rising in two tongues of brilliant flame. The superior man, by perpetuating the brilliance of the ancients, illuminates every quarter of the earth. In other words, we should make ourselves as completely dependent on the principle of righteousness as natural objects are dependent upon nature. In this way, we are sure to be successful. Ritsama/Karcher, brightness doubled, arousing radiance. Great people use consecutive brightening to illuminate tending towards the four sides. Cleary 1. Light has dual function. Thus do great people illumine the four quarters with continuing light. The sun goes in at night and comes out in the daytime. This pattern represents inner illumination and outer illumination, one light having dual function. Outer illumination has to be based on inner illumination. Illumination must reach inside and outside, so that both are illumined and both are correct. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. Clarity means clinging attachment. The sun and moon have their roots in heaven, and all the growing things have their roots in the earth. The double brightness of the two trigrams is rooted in correctness, and all under heaven are thereby transformed. The magnetic second line is central and correct, indicating a free and successful course. Nourishing a passive docility will lead to good fortune. Leg. Clarity is the trigram of fire and light, and the sun is the source of both of these. Its attribute is brightness, and by a natural metaphor, intelligence. But this trigram also means inhering or adhering to, being attached to. In the hexagram, we have a double brightness, a phrase which denotes the ruler. If we take the two central lines as emblematic of the situation, we have the magnetic dwelling with the dynamic above and below, a condition requiring a docile humility and strict adherence to what is correct. Cheng Tzu says, the nature of the ox is docile, and that of the cow is much more so. The subject of the hexagram, adhering closely to what is correct, must be able to act in obedience to it, as docile as a cow, and then there will be good fortune. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. Willed persistence gets results. Be receptive to your inner light and reflect it in your life. The superior man cultivates his capacity to manifest his comprehension of the work in his everyday choices. Light is a symbol of both normal consciousness and superconsciousness. Probably every religion in the world uses it in the latter sense, from the Let There Be Light in the first chapter of Genesis to the Lord of Light, Ahura Mazda, the supreme being of Zoroastrianism. The Tibetan Book of the Dead speaks of the clear white light, which is the first thing encountered after bodily death, a phenomenon reported as the experiential perception of those who have had near-death experiences. Light means truth, it means reality, and the double brightness of this hexagram tells us that clarity is manifested both above and below. A quote from D.I. Lauf in Secret Doctrines of the Tibetan Book of the Dead. Meditation on light is one of the most important exercises in the various schools of Tibetan yoga. The more these psychic and spiritual powers can be achieved during life, the stronger is the ability to penetrate and overcome the bardo. The Confucian commentary gives the examples of the sun and moon in the heavens and of growing things on the earth as emblems of clarity. Sun and moon are certainly luminous, but growing things are not. And when we meditate on the reason for this strange juxtaposition, we are led to the idea of the self and the ego. The self is the sun, the source of illumination which causes the ego to grow. Sun is to growing things as self is to ego. This idea is repeated in the relationship between the sun and the moon. The moon is not self-luminous, it can only reflect the light of the sun. Therefore, sun is to moon as self is to ego. The idea is that despite our illusions to the contrary, all of our power originates somewhere else. When we allow the power to work through us without interference, we become docile like the cow in the judgment. Clarity, therefore, is attained through docility, the ability to subdue and restrain the autonomous components of the psyche, which left to their own devices would prefer to go around pontificating their brilliant illusions rather than quietly reflecting the truth. It is not easy to reflect the truth, and the superior man is counseled to constantly perfect his capacity to do so. It is only when self and ego come together in a fusion reaction that the energy released attains the true double brightness imaged in the hexagram. The identical idea is found in the Kabbalah. A quote from the Zohar. Said Rabbi Simeon, "When the Holy One arrays himself, it is in the ornaments from both the celestial and terrestrial worlds. From the former, with that heavenly light on high that no human being can approach unto. From the latter, with the souls of the righteous, who the more they approximate themselves to this divine light, the more receptive and filled with it do they become, so that through them it expands in all directions, and the world, like a cistern or ocean, is filled with it." Wilhelm mentions that the hexagram, divided within and closed without, is an image of the meshes of a net in which animals remain snared. This gives us the image of clarity as comprehension, a net which captures and encloses insights. To receive the figure without changing lines is often a confirmation of an idea or action. It is saying, "You have comprehended," or "Your proposed action is lucid, intelligent," etc. And to our supporting hexagram, which puts our primary hexagram in a broader context, influence, a direction of travel, says what our primary hexagram means to us. He calls it inner truth. Other titles might be the symbol of central sincerity, inward confidence, inner truthfulness, centering, conforming, central return, faithfulness in the center, sincerity in the center, insight, understanding, the psyche. Quote from D.F. Hook, "Take the middle road and avoid extremes." Judgment, leg. Inner truth moves even pigs and fish and leads to good fortune. There will be advantage in crossing the great stream. There will be advantage in being firm and correct. Ritsuma/Karcher. Centering, conforming. Hogfish, significant. Harvesting, wading the great river. Harvesting trial. Hogfish. Aquatic mammals. Porpoise, dolphin. Intelligent aquatic animals whose development parallels the human. Sign of abundance and good luck. This hexagram describes your situation in terms of the relation between your inner core and the circumstances of your life. It emphasizes that bringing your central concerns and your life situation into a sincere and reliable accord is the adequate way to handle it. The image, leg, wood on a marsh, the image of inner truth. The superior man deliberates about cases of litigation and delays the infliction of death. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. Inner truth shows two magnetic lines occupying the innermost part of the hexagram with dynamic lines in the centers of the trigrams. We see the attributes of cheerfulness and flexible penetration. Sincerity, thus symbolized, reaches even to pigs and fishes and will transform the country. We see one riding on the symbol of wood, which forms an empty boat. Hence it is advantageous to cross the great stream. The virtue of inner truth requires firm correctness and shows the proper response of man to heaven. Leg. Inner truth denotes the highest quality of man, giving its possessor the power to prevail with spiritual beings, with other men and with lower creatures. There are two magnetic lines in the center and two dynamic lines above and below them. The magnetic lines represent the heart and mind free from all preoccupation without any consciousness of self. The two dynamic lines immediately above and below them are each in the center of their respective trigram and denote the solid virtue of one so free from selfishness. The trigram of wood above the trigram of a lake or marsh suggests a boat crossing the great stream. The pigs and fishes symbolize the rudest and most obstinate of men. Zhang Su observes, we have in the sincerity shown in the upper trigram superiors condescending to those below them in accordance with their peculiarities. And we have in that of the lower those below delighted to follow their superiors. The combination of these two things leads to the transformation of the country and state. Notes and paraphrases. Judgment. It is a great accomplishment when inner truth alters archetypal forces within the psyche. The ego's devotion to the work is the means to this end. The superior man carefully differentiates his options and avoids drastic measures. Can sometimes mean don't act until you are sure of all the facts. Anyone who monitors his dreams and other images knows that the unconscious is a continuous wellspring of psychic energy. Jung has observed that we are probably dreaming all of the time. The only reason we don't usually notice this is because the conscious mind is so powerful that the more subtle manifestations of the psyche are eclipsed. Since consciousness consists of only the upper layers of a deep continuum of awareness, it is obvious that we are being continuously created from within. The ultimate source of our being is not easily accessible, but all of the empirical evidence points to a self which transcends the space-time continuum, i.e., lives in another dimension. Quote from Jung in Letters. The capacity to nullify space and time must somehow inhere in the psyche. Or to put it another way, the psyche does not exist wholly in time and space. It is very probable that only what we call consciousness is contained in space and time, and that the rest of the psyche, the unconscious, exists in a state of relative spacelessness and timelessness. This seemingly exotic concept was written by Jung in 1939, yet today the theories of the quantum physicists are approaching the point where awareness itself will be recognized as space-time transcendent. A quote from Paul Davies in Superforce. In the modern Kaluza-Klein theory, all the forces of nature, not merely gravity, are treated as manifestations of space-time structure. What we normally call gravity is a warp in the four space-time dimensions of our perceptions, while the other forces are reduced to higher dimensional space warps. All the forces of nature are revealed as nothing more than hidden geometry at work. There is a deep compulsion to believe in the idea that the entire universe, including all the apparently concrete matter that assails our senses, is in reality only a frolic of convoluted nothingness, that in the end the world will turn out to be a sculpture of pure emptiness, a self-organized void. The physicists now hypothesize an 11-dimensional universe and state that the 7 extra dimensions are somehow rolled up to a very small size so that they are not apparent to our senses. If we are going to hypothesize such fantastic realms, it is more elegant to hypothesize consciousness itself as emanating from an extra-dimensional source. This is the pleroma of the Gnostics and alchemists, the upper and lower worlds of shamanism, or in Jungian parlance, the objective psyche or collective unconscious. The familiar space-time of our conscious experience consists of 3 linear dimensions plus time. Time is considered a dimension, but not like the other 3. One can go up, down, forward, and backward, to the left or right at will, but one cannot go back to this morning or forward to next Thursday afternoon. The time dimension is a continuous now, and we experience it and the other 3 dimensions from the reference points of consciousness. We are the center from which all dimensions radiate. Consciousness is like time in that it is always now, and since consciousness emerges from within a continuous and autonomous flow, we can legitimately hypothesize that we emanate from a power source in another dimension. We are a kind of continuous explosion from within, a microcosmic version of the Big Bang which originated the universe and which, incidentally, is still exploding, expanding outward into space. A quote from Elizabeth Hayek in Initiation. If everything that is recognizable is so only because it has separated itself from the all and nothingness, leaving its complementary half behind in the unmanifested state, then the earth too must have its complementary half in the unmanifested state, and the force of gravitation it exerts on all the creatures and objects living on it is the striving for reunification between the earth and its unmanifested complementary half, which has been left behind in the void as its negative reflection. The Earth's gravitational pull thus draws all the Earth towards the void which stands beyond time and space in order to bring about this reunion. If the Earth were to yield, all the Earth and everything on it would disappear to the center, into the void. But that would be a return to the paradisical unity, to God, to bliss. The image of the hexagram inner truth gives us the idea of an empty center, as good an image as could be devised from the structural components of the trigrams to show the inner source of human consciousness. The pigs and fishes of the judgment are the archetypal complexes which must be tamed through the process of the work. And to cross the great stream with firm correctness is to accomplish this holy task. A quote from D. Fortune in the Esoteric Philosophy of Love and Marriage. Through all ages men have sought, and some have found, there is a door through which we can pass out onto the higher planes, but that door is within the soul. It is an enlargement of consciousness whereby we perceive these things to which we have hitherto been blind, and from such perception comes the sense of reality which is lacking while we perceive nothing but appearances. Whoso has this wider vision is freed from the limitations of the 5 physical senses. His memory extends back beyond birth, and his hopes go forward beyond death. Having all aspects of his own nature harmoniously developed, he is at one with all aspects of the universe. Nothing is alien to him, and no form of existence is hostile. The path of life is open before him, and he treads it with joy. Now back to our primary hexagram 30 to read our changing lines 2 through 5. Line 2, leg. The second line, magnetic, shows its subject in her place in yellow. There will be great good fortune. Liu, the yellow light of the sun indicates great good fortune. Slofnacy, yellow net, prime auspiciousness. Commentary, Confucius/Leg, good fortune because she holds the course of the due mean. Wilhelm/Baines, one has found the middle way. Blowfold, the good fortune of being able to keep to the middle path. This is suggested by the position of the line, which is central to the lower trigram. The middle path, the golden mean, is praised by Taoists, Confucians, and Buddhists alike. It has always been regarded by traditionally minded Chinese as the principle upon which conduct should be based. Extremes of any kind have no place in Chinese philosophy, which is thus more humanistic than many of the philosophies of India and the Middle East. Notes and paraphrases. Su, the man occupies the central position of reasonableness, which results in enduring good fortune. Wing, a reasonable and moderate attitude will bring you the best possible luck. Remember, indulge in no excess, no extremes of thought or action. Editor, yellow is a nearly universal symbol of light and clarity. Both the sun and gold are yellow, and because it is in the middle of the trigram, this line images the concept of the golden mean. Wilhelm's commentary places this line at midday when the sun is directly overhead, hence full illumination. If this is the only changing line, the new hexagram becomes number 14, wealth, possession in great measure, suggesting the richness of clear insight. A quote from Proverbs 8:12. I, wisdom, am mistress of discretion, the inventor of lucidity of thought. Good advice and sound judgment belong to me, perception to me, strength to me. He breaks line 2 down into one. Definition A. The image suggests a position of balance and lucidity. Full comprehension is implied. Now line 3. Leg, the third line dynamic shows its subject in a position like that of the declining sun. Instead of playing on his instrument of earthenware and singing to it, he utters the groans of an old man of 80. There will be evil. Cleary 2. In the fire of the afternoon sun, you either drum on a jug and sing or lament as in old age. This bodes ill. When you use insight too much without concentration to balance it, sometimes you will be extremely joyful, drumming and singing, and sometimes you will be extremely anxious, lamenting as in old age. Sadness and joy disturb the song of your heart. Intellectual insight cannot sustain itself. Backsliding and loss are inevitable. Wu. The sun is passing the meridian. If he does not play his earthen instrument and sing, but sighs like an old man of 80 years, there will be foreboding. The passing of the meridian is like the passing of the prime time in life. If one does not make the best of his life now, it will be gone forever. Commentary. Confucius/Leg, a position like that of the setting sun, how can it continue long? Blowfold, sunset beauty, how can it endure for long? This passage suggests that our present happiness or success is not destined to endure. We must prepare for a setback. Leg. Line 3 is at the top of the lower trigram, whose light is now exhausted, suggesting a sunset. He should accept his position and resign himself to the ordinary amusements mentioned, but he groans and mourns instead. His restless activity interferes with the lowly contentment he should cherish. The Konghasi editors say that the declining sun is an emblem of obscuration coming over the virtue of the mind. Anthony. Fear and worry over the length of time required to attain recognizable progress puts us in the wrong balance. If we can noble-heartedly accept that things will be fulfilled when they will, we secure our fate by making possible that it can be fulfilled. As long as the ego stands by expectantly, measuring and weighing our progress, the dark force of doubt operates and the power of good cannot manifest itself. Obtaining this line reminds us that adversity lasts only for a time. Through it, we mold our character. Notes and paraphrases. Su. The man reaches his declining years and recalls the transitoriness of life. Instead of enjoying the ordinary pleasures while they last, he groans in melancholy. Wing. The best attitude to cultivate at this time in your life is a general acceptance of fate. To totally lose yourself in the happiness of the moment is as bad as to bemoan the passing of time. Such folly of the mind and the emotion leads to a loss of inner freedom, misfortune. Editor. There is apparently more than one way to translate this line, best seen in the contrast between Cleary's Taoist and Buddhist versions. One implies that frivolity is an antidote to depression, the other that both positions are extreme. Emphasized in all translations is the contrast between joy and sorrow, singing and groaning, youth and old age. The setting sun symbolizes the decline of awareness, the darkening of the light, the advance of illusion. That is, to either mindlessly sing or to bewail one's fate is to be deluded. One has forgotten one's source. Frivolity and despair are polarized attitudes, and the line tells us that clarity wanes whenever one takes an extreme position. In another context, the setting sun suggests the inevitability of death. Those who believe that death is final usually respond in either of the two ways shown, and thus miss the mark. There is also a suggestion of the futility of trying to hold on to something that is by nature transitory. Note the similarity between this line and line 3 of Hexagram 61, Inner Truth. He finds a comrade. Now he beats the drum, now he stops. Now he sobs, now he sings. Wing's paraphrase is probably the best. A quote from Plotinus in the Enneads. No soul, not even our own, enters into the body completely. Soul always remains united by its higher part to the intelligible realm. But if the part that is in the realm of sense dominates, or rather becomes dominated and disturbed, it keeps us unaware of what the higher part of the soul contemplates. He breaks down line 2 into 3 possible succinct definitions A, B, and C. A, an image of gross illusion. Clarity is lost when perception is polarized. B, nothing lasts here below, but that's only half the story, the least interesting half. And C, gather your rosebuds while ye may. Line 4, leg. The fourth line dynamic shows the manner of its subject's coming. How abrupt it is, as with fire, with death, to be rejected by all. Blowfold, how sudden its coming, then with flame-like swiftness it is dead and cast away. Apparently we may expect some onlooked for good fortune, but of a kind that will have passed away before we have had time to enjoy it. Wu, so abruptly it comes, like burning, like dying, like being abandoned. The symbolic associations paint a scene of hell. Some scholars consider this judgment to be the most vicious of the 384 judgments of the lines in the I Ching. Commentary. Confucius/Leg. None can bear with him, Wilhelm Baines, yet in itself it has nothing that would cause it to be accepted. Blowfold. Its coming was sudden and there was no place for it. Cleary, 2. There is no accommodation. Why wait until burning out that this is not the way to a good end? Anthony, we know that perseverance over a period of time is necessary to accomplish our goals. Nevertheless, our inferiors complain of how long it takes. This causes us to doubt ourselves, the great man potential in others, and the creative. We need to rid ourselves of our complaining inferiors, thereby disconnect our inner gaze. In this way, we overcome the ego and hold to clarity. Notes and paraphrases. Sue, the man forges upward too abruptly in his restlessness. Others cannot bear his unseemly manner, and he consumes himself like the fire. Wing, your display of overly enthusiastic energies and endeavors will exhaust you. Nothing will come of it. Editor, this is often an image of myopic enthusiasm, perhaps a brilliant idea that will come to nothing because it does not harmonize with a larger reality. Although sometimes a warning about intemperate responses, as At its most neutral, the line can refer to a temporary situation which will end as soon as it begins. Despite Wu's commentary about this being the most vicious line in the Book of Changes, it is more often an image of an inconsequential manifestation of some sort. A quote from R. Asiagoli in Psychosynthesis. The second stage, that of emotional excitement or elation, when the individual is carried away by an excessive enthusiasm and cherishes the illusion of having arrived at a permanent attainment, calls for a gentle warning that his blessed state is of necessity but temporary, and he should be given a description of the vicissitudes of the way ahead of him. He breaks down line 4 into 3 succinct possible definitions. A flash in the pan, a sudden but temporary burst of energy. B, so much for that idea. And C, hell also is a place to live. Line 5. Leg. The fifth line, magnetic, shows its subject as one with tears flowing in torrents and groaning in sorrow. There will be good fortune. Blowfold. His tears streamed forth as though to extinguish his piteous sighs. Good fortune. Bitter regret serves us in good stead. Lu. A flood of tears, sighing and sadness. Good fortune. There may be suffering and mourning, but good fortune hides in misfortune. Cleary 1. Weeping and lamenting, good fortune. This is clearly knowing one is not illumined. Commentary, Confucius/Leg. This is due to her occupying the place of the ruler. Wilhelm/Baines. She clings to kings and prince. Blowfold. This good fortune stems from the rulers. For purposes of divination, we may take it that rulers means anyone with authority over us. Cleary 2. The good fortune of the fifth yen is cleaving to rulers. This represents concentration and balance, which can bring forth genuine insight. Therefore, progress is certain. Weeping and lamenting refers to abstention from complacency and presumption. This is always characteristic of the study of sages. Wu. The auspiciousness is due to his adherence to the king. When he is humble enough to pledge allegiance to the higher authority, he will be rewarded with good fortune. Leg. Line 5 is central in the place of honor, but she is magnetic, as is her correlate in line 2. Her position between the dynamic 4 and 6 fills her with anxiety and apprehension, shown by her weeping and groaning. But such demonstrations are proof of her inward adherence to humility and correctness, so there will be good fortune. Anthony. We attain a clear view when, in going through difficulties, we acknowledge that adversity is necessary for growth. This change of heart displaces vain considerations that accompany change, such as dread at growing older, being unattractive, or having to go through embarrassing decreases of ego. We overcome vanity when we realize that the ego, despite its bravado, has nothing to do with our success and is an obstruction to progress. Notes and paraphrases. Sue. The man reaches the zenith of life. After experiencing certain disappointments, he recognizes the vanity of human behavior. If he modifies his value system and mood, good fortune will eventually be realized. Wing. A true change of heart is occurring. Such dramatic change is sometimes accompanied by a deep grief. Yet with this grief comes good fortune, because the change will bring better times for all concerned. Editor. If this is the only moving line, the hexagram is changed to number 13, Union of Forces. The corresponding line of which reads, the representative of the union of forces first wails and cries out and then laughs. The present position thus describes the struggles and pains involved in growth, and the union of forces is the product of this growth. Since this hexagram refers to clarity and comprehension, the increase could be the creation of new concepts or ideas. Because this is a magnetic line located between two dynamic lines, there is conveyed the idea of mediating between two extremes. This mediation is necessarily a balancing act, as the stress of the position indicates. A quote from Jung in The Symbolic Life. Suffering that is not understood is hard to bear, while on the other hand, it is often astounding to see how much a person can endure when he understands the why and the wherefore. A philosophical or religious view of the world enables him to do this, and such views prove to be, at the very least, psychic methods of healing, if not of salvation. He breaks down changing line 5 into 3 possible succinct definitions. A, growing pains are harbingers of integration. B, the shattering of illusions is never pleasant, yet the pain is a prelude to something better. And C, growing pains, but still growing. Turn to Hilary Barrett's I Ching, Walking Your Path, Creating Your Future. And she calls our primary hexagram 30, clarity. Key questions: what do you see? What does it mean? How can you nourish and sustain a high level of awareness? Oracle: clarity, constancy bears fruit, creating success. Raising female cattle is good fortune. The ancient Chinese character for clarity shows a flying bird and a net to capture it. Birds are messengers. This one represents flashes of insight, the way things can light up and shine out clearly. We weave a net of concepts to grasp the message and hold its meaning in awareness. This is not passive seeing, but a meeting of outer and inner light. Seeing the truth and holding to it with constancy bears fruit. Then the moment of insight can become lasting awareness, so that we enter into creative communication with the signs and messages around us, and truly see other people. Just as a bright light needs fuel, such a level of attention and understanding demands a great deal of energy. Female cattle represent the reserves of strength that sustain awareness, along with a quiet willingness for that strength to be used and guided. They would be the support of an old farming culture, providing both food and power so that the people could develop a higher culture and a better understanding of their world. So take care of your cattle and build up your reserves. As well as paying attention to what you see, nurture your capacity to see. Cultivate the part of you that shelters and nourishes new insights. Image. Doubled light gives rise to clarity. Great people with continuous light illuminate the 4 regions. The trigram for fire and light is doubled in this hexagram, both inside and outside. So this is not just a flash of light that vanishes into the gloom, but continuous illumination. The inner awareness of great people shines out, spreading understanding further and further into the world. Perhaps not because of how brightly it burns, but because it is an unbroken stream of light. Sequence. Clarity follows from hexagram 29, repeating chasms. Falling naturally has occasion to hold together, and so clarity follows. Clarity means holding together. In the chasms, you find nothing solid to catch hold of in the outside world. You're falling, and you must hold fast your heart. When there is nothing else, what you hold on to will be the truth. Light is renewed by the experience of darkness, and clarity arises from emotional depths. And hexagram 61, our supporting hexagram, she calls inner truth. Key questions. Where do you place your trust? What feels true? Oracle. Inner truth. Piglets and fishes, good fortune. Fruitful to cross the great river. Constancy bears fruit. The old Chinese character for inner probably shows a drum mounted on a pole. It suggests centrality and balance, and also the vibrations that carry through inner space. And the character for truth shows a bird's claw over a child, suggesting the mother bird protecting her young. It also means confidence and the sincerity that inspires it, absolute presence and concentration, creating a true connection. The very present truth vibrates through you like a drumbeat. You apprehend it directly as an inner resonance. The lines of the hexagram itself show a space at the center, open to listen and resound with the intensity of experience. Piglets and fishes are symbols of wealth, plenty, and luck. They are staple foods used in humble offerings to the spirits. To receive piglets and fishes shows that you are in a state of connectedness and can trust you will be provided for. Success in ongoing ventures, rearing your pigs, and the insight to be in the right place at the right time, placing the fishing nets, are both manifestations of your inner truth. And so it is good to commit yourself. Inner truth will naturally move you towards new landscapes, as the inner hollow of a boat would carry you across the water. You stay true to your understanding by carrying it through into action, translating the moment of insight into responsiveness as a constant way of living. Image: above the lake is the wind, inner truth. A noble one deliberates over legal proceedings and delays executions. The wind reaches and influences everywhere, always bringing new messages of change. The open surface of the lake, stirred by the wind, is constantly in motion. As the lake doesn't set hard into a final shape, so the noble one is slow to take irreversible decisions. To be true, she stays fluid and open, allowing herself to be moved by changing circumstances and new perspectives. Sequence: inner truth follows from hexagram 60, measuring. Measuring and also trusting it, and so inner truth follows. By clearly defining agreements, measuring makes trust possible. When people share a way of measuring and understanding, a mental map, they can trust one another. When the map corresponds with reality, they enjoy a trustworthy connection with the world. Pair. Inner truth is paired and contrasted with hexagram 62, small exceeding. Small exceeding steps over the line. Inner truth means trust. With inner truth, you have complete confidence. Things feel stable and dependable. Small exceeding is the opposite experience, stepping out into the world, feeling small, exposed, and out of balance, constantly aware of the need to adapt. And now to read our changing lines from our primary hexagram 30, clarity, being 2 through 5, each having their own context. Line 2, the heart's perception, the emotional center, where you make and feel connections. Line 3, an emerging identity, facing a transition with fear or desire, resolution or indecision. Changing line 4, the capacity for action, asking how the work can be done. And changing line 5, strength and self-determination, clear vision, being in command. So changing line 2 in our primary hexagram 30, clear golden light from the source, good fortune. The bright radiance of full sunlight is the life-sustaining energy that everything is made of. You know it as an inner light that burns clearly and steadily. It does not blaze up to extremes. It is not showy or dazzling. It simply radiates out evenly into the world. This is the energy that illuminates your understanding as it circulates endlessly behind and through your emotions. Celebration or mourning, attachment and moving on. It exists in motion and is not dependent on a single source, and so it is not extinguished. Changing line 3. In the clear light of the setting sun, if not beating a pot and singing, then you will be making the lament of great old age. Pitfall. The sun sets, the world turns, a day comes to its close. This is the end of one phase of your life, and the light of endings colors all you see. It is time to take in what has happened and move into the present moment. You need to sing your own song, beat your drum, and celebrate the achievements of the day. You cannot keep the sun from setting, but this is no reason to feel ineffectual or helpless. Unless you celebrate deliberately and loudly, you will sink into melancholy, futilely resisting the passing of time, dwelling on what is lost to you as you watch the light and color fade from your visions. Line 4. Sudden it comes, burns, dies, thrown out. A tremendously bright light flares up, shines out, maybe beautifully, maybe painfully, and demands attention. And then it dies away and is discarded. This is not good or bad, it's just the nature of a flame that does not have enough fuel to sustain itself for long. Don't be misled by its brilliance, or set too much store by what you imagine you have seen. It is not as significant as it appears. The glow of images and roles lives just as long as they do, then dies away, and what you see in that brief burst of light is not the complete picture. Line 5. Weeping tears like flowing streams, sad as if in mourning, good fortune. It is good to see what you have lost and to mourn it, to let grief flow like time. And it is good to recognize one another with compassion and see how transience and loss unite us. Tears cleanse the eyes. We will read chapter 36 from the Tao Te Ching, translated by Jia-Fu Fang and Jane English. That which shrinks must first expand. That which fails must first be strong. That which is cast down must first be raised. Before receiving, there must be giving. This is called perception of the nature of things. Soft and weak overcome hard and strong. Fish cannot leave deep waters, and a country's weapons should not be displayed.